Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell, and today I'm very fortunate to have Richie T on the podcast. He is based in Utah, and go ahead and say hello, Richie.
Well, hello, everyone.
Today, I am going to just have a conversation with Richie to talk about music and learn about him and about weddings in the Intermountain West area. So, Richie, just to get things started, I always want to start off with an icebreaker. So tell me a little bit about your most memorable wedding.
Well, I thought about this. I'm going to tell you two, and I'll be brief with them. One is the most like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And then one was like, oh, this was pretty cool that this happened. And I'll tell you the disaster first. So this was the last wedding I did before COVID shut everything down. We're getting to the toasts, and the maid of honor had started drinking probably the day before, easily, maybe days before. I mean, the fact that she was able to stand was pretty remarkable. And she gets up and she's doing her maid of honor toast. And she says to everyone, well, we all know that they don't really love each other. This is her toast. And you know how sometimes within a toast, you can hear like someone will start out with that bombastic phrase. And then you're like, okay, the punchline is coming here. They're going to bring it around and we're all going to laugh. It put us on our heels, but it ended up being okay. That was not what she did. She's like, we all know that they don't really love each other. And the only reason that they're getting married is because she's pregnant, which she was, and which very few people knew. They had told me because they said, we don't think that you ever will say anything like this, but I do feel like I'm starting to show a little bit and we don't want any sort of jokes. And I was like, I would never, but I appreciate you letting me know. So she says, and the only reason they're getting married is because, she's pregnant and we'll be doing this wedding thing again in a couple years when she finds someone that she loves. And it was just unreal, the response that was in the room, to the point that people like started booing her. And then she just tripled down where she's like, come on, I know we're all thinking it. I know we're all feeling it. What? I'm the only one that's going to say the truth. Couple groomsmen, this was at one of our ski resorts, picked her up and took her to the lift, told the security people, do not let her back up here for any reason. And then, sent her down the mountain. And then and this is the kind of person I am, I became Facebook friends with this bride because I was like, I got to see how this pans out. And then as it turns out, she did get divorced like 6 months later. So now my question is that maid of honor and that bride friends because she was the only one that was being honest with her? Or was it like, I can't believe how tactless you were, whatever. So that's my disaster, most memorable moment that I've ever been a part of. One that this just recently happened, but that I was pretty proud of actually at a different ski resort. We do a lot of that in Utah. A lot of people, especially in the mid-summer time, because it's so hot down in the valley, like it is in Vegas for you. People escape to the mountains. They want to be able to have cool mountain air, all this stuff for their receptions. We're up there and we're doing dinner, and this guy comes and talks to the bartender, and then the bartender brings this guy to me, and I'm like, this is not part of this wedding celebration. Who is this guy? And this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, how are you doing? And he presumes that I work for this particular ski facility, and is like, hey, I want to give you my card. I want to play music at weddings. I'm a classically trained guitarist. I want to be able to do that. And I'm like, that's cool. I don't run this place. I'm just here tonight, whatever, but I'll take your card and maybe I can pass it along to people. And then as he's sort of taken the steps up to walk away, I said, wait a minute. Do you have your guitar here with you right now? And he's like, yeah, it's in the car. And I was like, okay, well, here goes. In my mind, I'm thinking, this is quite the gamble what I'm about to do, but if this pays off, it's going to be pretty rad. So he goes and gets his guitar and comes back, and then I come into the room where we're doing dinner, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special surprise, a gift that I wanted to give the bride and groom for their wedding, and they're looking at me going, we don't know what this is. We did not talk about this. What is this thing that you are doing? And I brought this guy in and we sort of roughly mic'd him, and he played one of the greatest. I don't know what song it was. I couldn't tell you anything like that, but he sat down and just every stereotype of the classical guitar, he's moving with it and slowly emoting through the things. And it was this beautiful song to the point that it gets done and everyone is like, yeah, that was amazing. And everyone thought that it was a joke, a setup by me.
Right.
That, that they had obviously planned and hired this guy to come and play a song. And then, it comes out later. They're like, did you know he was coming to the bride and groom? And they're like, no, we had no idea. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that guy was just passing through. And I decided to get him to come play a song. So that was definitely a gamble, but one of the best moments I've had at a wedding in a while.
Well, I think that that's part of being the DJ, of living in that moment and accepting that moment and running with it. Wouldn't you say, though, that going off of that the live musicians at receptions are becoming or are a hot thing right now? I see a lot of saxophonists and guitar for the dinner hour. Are you seeing more of that in your area?
Yeah, definitely. With some of the higher end folks, I'm even seeing a fusion of it, right? There's a set that the DJ and saxophonist play together for some portion of the evening, or, the guitarist and a drummer and the DJ will do something. There's all types of those things. And I'm here for it because, I can still, and this is where I think some ego gets in the way, as they go, some DJs will be like, no, it has to be me. I am the show. No one else is the show. It's me. But I'm like, no, if I can get this and we can have this unique thing to the point that people are saying this is an evening that was crafted, created by this DJ with a whole lot of other people and no one will ever have something similar. I mean, that's the day and age we live in. Take a picture, put it on Instagram. You won't ever have this special thing that I had. That is the epitome of what we live in.
Yeah, I went to a wedding meetup the other day and they said, if it doesn't exist on Instagram, it never happened. So
yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
And there's no more of a flattering thing than you're doing something at a wedding, something on the dance floor, something during dinner, something anytime when people are grabbing their phones and going, I have to capture that. That's when you have done a thing that is unique, that is special, that is hireable, that is important, that is significant, all of the things.
That's fantastic. So I just want to talk a little bit about you. I did a little bit of research because you're the owner of Best DJ in Utah, and I saw that you had 377 5-star reviews on Google, which is fantastic. So tell me a little bit about you and about Best DJ in Utah.
So I worked for another guy. Well, let me tell you how I got into the business. So I grew up doing alternative rock radio. That's how I got my start, producing a morning show, fairly well-known nationally, blah, 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 all the things, right? They were great. And I was working one time on an on-air shift and somebody called into the radio station and said, Richie, we really want you to DJ our wedding. And I said, listen, I appreciate that, that a wedding DJ and a radio DJ have the same title, but it is a completely different list of responsibilities. I don't know. I'll pass, right? And just sort of ended it there. And then they called up again, maybe the next day or a couple days later, or they emailed. They got back in contact with me and were like, hey, we still want you to DJ our wedding. And I went to college with Rob Ferre. So he was my roommate way back in the day. I've known him long enough since that he was Rob Ferry when I first knew him, before he made the name change. That's the thing I tease him about. But, legend as far as the DJ space. He teaches a lot of places. I'm sure that most people listening will at least know of him. And I asked him, I said, what should I do about this? And he said, here's what you do. Make up a number that no one will ever pay, and then put it on them. Then you tell them the number. They say they can't afford it, and then, you don't have to do it and all that stuff. So I was like, okay. And I don't remember the number I made up, but I said, you pay me this. And they said, deal. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to learn how to do this now. So I went back to Rob and I said, hey, they said they'll pay it. And now here we are. It was New Year's Eve, 2009 to 2010. And I think up to that point, I had been to like one civil wedding. Here in Utah, we do some religious weddings. I've been to those, but those aren't like what you think of, right? It's not at all like a regular civil kind of ceremony. So I didn't have any idea like what a processional was or what a recessional was. And I said, Rob, I need your help. So he comes and he's like, okay, I'll walk you through the ceremony. And he helps and he's, you know, and then we're going to do this and whatever. And we get done and he's playing the recessional music. And then he's like, well, I got to go to another gig. Here's my backup computer. There's a folder on there that says bangers or something like that. Play anything from that list. You'll be fine. Call me tomorrow and let me know how it went. And I was like, wait, you're leaving me? Hadn't told me that he was going to leave me. And so I was like, okay. Now I had the fortunate opportunity that this was New Year's Eve at a private location where the bar had been completely paid for and everyone had a bus ride down to their hotel room. Right. New Year's Eve. By 9:15, I could have been playing Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma and it wouldn't have mattered. But it was super cool, like being able to like craft the songs. And I'm like, oh, I know this song. And watching everyone just immediately react to it, that I was like, there's something cool here. So for a little less than a decade, I worked for him. And then in about 2016, 17, I decided I'd start doing my own thing. And I thought, well, you know, I had always teased Rob about the name of his company because his is Life of the Party, which is great, but he tried to get a domain and he had to buy, it's like life hyphen, you know, ampersand of, you know, emoji this. And I'm just like, that's awful to try and track down. So I was like, well, what do people search when they're trying to find a DJ in Utah? And I was like good DJ? No, you know, best DJ. They want the best DJ in Utah. So I bought the domain and then immediately just started doing it by myself. And then since then have, you know, hired 4 or 5 guys that work for me and awesome. We're out every weekend. And to the point of reviews, I'll say this, there's, as you can probably imagine, some DJs in the state of Utah who will say, you're not the best. What do you mean you're the best?
Right.
In that sweet, insecure way that, you know, DJs all over, you know, we sort of posture towards everyone. And I was like, okay, well, you're right. I'm not the best. I bought a domain for $11.99. But what I decided, what I decided to do was, okay, I don't even know in which you adjudicate someone's DJ skills or whatever the thing is, right? But I was like, but I can make a point to make sure that I have the most and the highest amount of reviews so that if anyone says, what makes you the best? I can say scoreboard right there, you know, look at that. And so I, you know, leaned into that and have found a tremendous amount of success being able to get people to do that.
That's awesome. Dun-dun-dun.
Yep. The
sound effects. Yeah. I was going to ask you about SEO reasons because that's my background. And yeah, you could have best Utah DJ near me.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because just today I was listening to the news about, I think it's a restaurant in New York that they have named the restaurant Thai food near me.
Right.
And now it's all the buzz because for the very reason, SEO, people search. Right. And that's what you have to think about. And I know without question that a portion, I don't know what portion, but a portion of my business comes from the very simple best DJ in Utah Google search.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, just like me for my wedding songs, of course, I have to get wedding songs in there because I want to rank for wedding songs.
Yeah.
Same reason. Very cool. So getting back to a little bit about the music that's popular, are there any hits that you're finding that are filling the dance floor that, you know, people are having a good time to?
I mean, in particular, I think I'd say just sort of a generalized statement about it. I think that it's super important. And when I'm doing this, I think that I'm more energetic and I think my dance floors are, but really paying attention to like the movie soundtracks and you know, TikTok and social trends. And I think that can kind of be a timeless piece of advice as opposed to like the Barbie girl from Barbie movie has really been right. Like if you are just paying attention, eyes open, paying attention to what is showing up in those places and then making sure you have it, I think that almost becomes like a little bit of a challenge for me. Like, am I doing something? Or like when the kid comes up or someone comes up and says, hey, do you have this? If I have no idea, two things happen within me. I go, oh crap, what are they talking about?
Right.
And oh, I got to write that down and find out exactly what they're talking about so that this doesn't happen again. And I think that that's a really great way to, to keep it fresh and to be able to make sure that you're on the cusp of stuff. But for me, what I have found particular pleasure in most recently, probably the last couple of years, is like I'll try and be the guy who plays something that people haven't heard from for a long time, so that people are like, oh yeah. And what it came from, I watched that Bee Gees documentary that came out a couple of years ago. I think it was on HBO. And I was like, oh yeah, the Bee Gees have so many great songs that you sort of forget about because we get swept up in like, Staying Alive and some of these other ones that like occasionally I'll drop in something like that and people will come up, older generation certainly, but even some of the younger folks who are like, I haven't heard that, or who is this? And that's another thing for me where I'm like, yeah, don't forget, we have lots of great new music, but there's a lot of older music that we have just kind of forgotten along the wayside.
So speaking of that, are you taking requests when you're DJing weddings?
Always.
Okay.
And the way I deal with it, I don't know if it's unique, but the way that I deal with it is right as I'm opening up the dance floor, or when I'm doing like the, hey, I'm the DJ for the night, you can pull me aside and make a request if you would like. I say something like, but be warned, if you request a song, I'll probably play it unless the bride and groom have said, don't play any request. If you make a request, I'll probably play it. And if it sucks, I will tell everyone that you were the one that made that request. And that, I mean, it's pretty, I don't think everyone can get away with it. My personality can get away with it, but it really has sort of tempered some of the, oh, you know what, they're going to love songs that you always get. It's like, no, they're not. They aren't. And I'll play it. And then I'm pointing to you and everyone will boo you. So I have some fun with that a little bit.
I wanted to ask you about just traditional versus modern. We're talking about first dance songs. Of course, most couples are doing first dance songs still now, but are you seeing in your area like the bouquet toss, the cake cutting? Are they just kind of phasing those out, or what's happening?
Yeah, good question. So Utah, we are steeped in tradition, and we do something that I don't even know that they do anywhere else. I've never done it when I've done like a wedding in Idaho, or I was just in Wyoming this last weekend, in Nevada this weekend, where they do a receiving line here. And some people listening to this may not even know what that is. It is the most boring thing you could ever possibly do at a wedding reception. You have the ceremony, and then you open it up, and both sets of parents stand on the respective side of the bride or groom, and you stand and say, Johnny, this is your mom's best friend, Dave, from college. Great. I don't care. I'm glad we're standing in this line instead of doing something else. And we do that for hours at some of our receptions here. Not all of them, but within the Utah market, we have a thing called the Dirty 30, which is when you have a 3-hour reception, because people will get, a lot of LDS people, they get married somewhere else in the temple, and then they come and do a reception, right? And the first like hour and a half is the receiving line. And then as you lower your head, people can't see you just going, what are we doing here? And then we do the formalities. And then what you have left is about 30 minutes of time to dance. And we call it the Dirty 30 because you have to go into it so hard because you have to have them feel like, man, what a crazy dance party that was, because they're leaving in 30 minutes. And so let's go after it. So the receiving line is one that I wish would go away, that I know that we do here. The last dance, that's the thing that has come about, I feel like, really since COVID. You have everyone do their whole thing, and then you send everybody out to do the receiving line, and then they do a last dance, just the two of them. And some couples have opted not to do a first dance anymore and just have the last dance, right? They, especially those shy couples that are like, listen, we don't want the attention. If you can make my mother-son dance 20 seconds long, I'd love it. And then they'll have that last dance. And in a lot of ways, I sort of like it because it's the culmination of the entire day. I step out of the room as well, and they have the moment to be like, hey, babe, we made it. Isn't this great? I love that we're here. And now we're going to step out of this place and begin our life. I in a lot of ways like it more than the first dance.
Yes, I love couples that are doing that just because it gives them a chance to recap their day and say, okay, everything's calmed down instead of, okay, rushing out. Oh no, now what? Okay, we're driving off. What
Yeah.
just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And as far as the receiving line, I DJ'd in Montana, so yes, we were always behind the times and traditions. And I always told couples, please, if you're having a receiving line, just have it at the ceremony.
Hmm.
Have it at the end. Don't have it at the reception. But yeah, that's a time kill for you for an hour and a half. That's crazy.
Yeah. I say, listen, I don't think you should do a line. I don't, ultimately, I'll do whatever people pay me to do, right? There's some
Right.
people that are like, I won't do a line. It's like, okay, will you
Right.
not pay your mortgage? I'm betting you'll pay, you'll do the line. But I'll say things like, listen, I'm cutting it off at 8 o'clock, or you will never get out of that, or 7:30, or whatever the thing is. So let's do it, and let's do that line so hard, and then I'll be the bad guy. Guys, they're not standing there anymore. We're moving to a different thing. Thank you. We appreciate it. Good night.
Right.
Let's move to the next thing. Because otherwise it does. It just ends up being longer and longer. No one wants feelings to get hurt, and we just go, 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 go.
Very, very good tips. I wanted to ask you too about couples planning their music. Is there any tips that you can give to them, particularly music that may not be quote unquote wedding appropriate? You have the metalheads and you have the ultra conservative each end. Is there any tips that you could give to them to incorporate their music into the wedding?
Yeah, I'll say two things about that. One of the things that I say, and this is the first thing, in the consultation that I do beforehand, is I say, hey, I'm going to give you guys a lot of suggestions today, and you don't have to take any of them. There are no wrong answers as far as your wedding goes, unless you're doing something you don't want to do. And that's how I begin the whole thing. So, then, that can look like I'm doing this because my mom wants me to do this. I'm doing this because tradition tells me I should do this or whatever. And so I have that kind of branch into the music portion of the evening as well. Listen, if you love metal, people know that you love metal. And
Right.
so if you are, a delicate 1,000 years, going in, and you're, Can't Help Falling in Love by Daniel Yang coming out, like, people know that you're doing something that isn't true to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should you, metal thrash everyone? I don't know. I don't think so. But there is a way you can do it in, and typically where those things go, I feel like cake cutting is an amazing opportunity to be able to incorporate a song that maybe doesn't, air quotes, fit with the rest of the evening. I think a groom song to come down the aisle can kind of be fun, and especially now where we've gotten into like having flower boys or flower men coming down the aisle, and some of those things, like a groom song to come down if he's on board for the rest of the day. But I had a groom recently who he was like, listen, I love my wife so much. We are paying this out of pocket. I have given her literally everything that she wants for what this is, but I will be walking down the aisle to System of a Down's Chop Suey, or we're not doing this. And
Right.
him coming down, like it was his opportunity to the equivalent of being a walk-up song if he played baseball, or the come out on the field if he played football. Like, that was his moment. And I tell people to lean into that as much as they possibly can. And it's fun. Like, I had another couple, they were really funny. He's a touring stand-up comedian, and his wife is equally as hilarious. And for their recessional song, they wanted to have kind of a joke, and so they did Kanye's Gold Digger as they walked out of the from the ceremony, and people went, what? And then they were like, yeah, of course this couple did that. I had a cocktail hour of parody songs, all Weird Al-esque parody songs that people just loved it. And they were like, what is this song? I don't know the original. And people were paying attention. And so many times those things are just meh. They're a disregarded thing, but that makes it an important thing. So I tell people, lean into who they are, because people know it.
I think that's such an important tip, because personalizing your wedding day, it's not your parents, it's not your grandparents' day. It's your day as the wedding couple. and to incorporate those personal moments. And I think another thing that you kind of hinted at too is you have your specific music that you like, incorporate it in as a specific moment. Don't have an hour of it at the reception, because that's when people may leave, people may be offended, whatever. Having those specific moments, like you're saying, the cake cutting, or just as a recessional, that's 2 minutes or 3 minutes out of a 4-hour day.
Mhm.
People are going to love that you're incorporating that into the day.
Yeah. And I think it's a DJ's responsibility to speak from their experience about how those things may play with a larger crowd. I can't tell you how many times people will, when I'm working with them, I say, give me a few songs that you think would be great to dance to.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll drop them in an Apple or Spotify playlist because it's just so darn easy for them to be able to do. And I'll get it and I'll look at it and I'll go, what great music for a road trip.
Right.
Not for
Classic.
a dance floor. So then I'll talk to him and I'll say, hey, I will play this if that is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know that these are not really danceable songs. This
Mm-hmm.
is, you're watching the sunset with your friend, and if this is what you want, I'm here for it.
Right.
But you need to know that this is also what you're choosing. So if you want the craziest dance party, like, this is not happening with Jack Johnson's Angel. I appreciate that song. That's not where that's going to take us. So I think it's important to have that feedback, that dialogue. And that's what they hired you for.
Right. 100%. It's amazing how much the DJ is the guide for the day to keep things in order and just help those couples, because most couples haven't been married before.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they've been to a lot of weddings, they have a lot of suggestions, but yeah, they've never done it themselves. So it's important to guide them through the day.
Yeah, I always equate it to, think about like a director for a film, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many movies have you seen? Hundreds, maybe thousands? But when you're asked to be the director of the film, do you know what you're doing? How do you establish the shots? What's going to look good? How do we capture all this stuff? And so people are like, I know music. And I'm like, yes, you do. You do not know how people react to music and timeline of things. And so it really is the difference of, I enjoy movies. I make movies. I enjoy music. I craft music for events.
Eloquently said. Love it. So just a final thing, I just wanted to ask you about line dances, because it's such a hot topic in the DJ community. I find that, it's so funny. Of a wedding in California may not want line dances, but a wedding in Minnesota may want line dancing. My wife's family's from Wisconsin, so yeah, they're doing the beer barrel polka.
Mm-hmm.
It's still relevant today, so it really depends on your location. What are your thoughts on the hot topic of line dances?
Yeah, well, so Utah, line dancing capital of the nation, worth noting, and that is real. And I'm probably partial to it because one of the services that I offer that very few people in the state or even the Intermountain West offer is I teach line dancing. So sometimes these gigs that I'll get hired for is literally just me coming to a company or a family reunion or something, and I'm there to teach them line dancing. And that's like that's the team building thing that they did, or that's the, fun activity that they did during their family reunion. So it probably doesn't need to be said, but I'm a fan of it. I understand why people don't want to do it. Some people feel like it's pretty juvenile, that it's just one step away from like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And I get it. We're not babies. But I think it is the human phenomenon too, with line dancing, that it levels the playing field so that people aren't being self-conscious about what they're doing. And if you have a dance floor where people aren't dancing, maybe it's because, people are self-conscious. Lights are too light. They aren't drunk enough. They don't, know what moves, or maybe they don't know the music, or it's been too long since they've done it. You level the playing field and say, here is what we're going to do. Walk this way. Cool. I'm doing it just like everyone else. Put your hands here. Got it. All right. And so for me, I like to have it as a tool to help craft the night.
Mhm.
But I 100% why people wouldn't want to have it, and I also understand how in some cases it becomes a crutch where people are like, I have to do it. I don't know how I'll get people to have a good time without it, and I don't think that's the place for it either. I think it's
Yeah.
it's a
I agree.
delicate balance.
I definitely agree with the approach that you're going with, because when I was DJing in Montana in the 90s, I did a lot of high school dances, and they were out in the middle of nowhere, and I taught the Macarena, and it was just coming out. They didn't know how to do it, but when you're out there teaching them how to do it, or you're teaching them the latest dance craze,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're teaching them Walker Hayes's song, you're teaching them how to do it. It's a different approach, and I love that you're getting everybody involved with that. It's rather than, like you're saying, relying on it being a crutch of, oh, let me just play this because nobody's dancing.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen when they continue not to dance because you're playing it?
Right.
That's
Right.
worse.
And it's interesting you bring up high school dances. I hate high school dances and won't do them. I leave them. There are people in my market that, I mean, I'll do them if they're small schools. I'll do them if like it's a favor or something like that. If there's a performing arts school, I feel like I have things in common with them. I'll go and do that. But just a high school, like these kids that yell next and all they want to do is jump, mosh to stuff. But to the point, that's just a line dance.
Right.
That's just, I want to be like everybody else. That's a thing I know I can do. And it's a safe thing for me to be able to do in this large social setting. That's why people like it. It's not because they're like, cool, I want to show them my greatest dance moves of this. This is a low bar entry to being like other people. I can jump.
Right. And this is a music you're going to be playing at weddings in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a great transition to, just tell me, to close it out, just tell me a little bit about you and your company and how people can contact you.
Yeah, for sure. So on social media at Best DJ in Utah in all the places, the website bestdjinutah.com. You can Google search Best DJ in Utah like a lot of our out of state folks do. And I'll tell you what, that probably is where that SEO/name of business comes most in play. When you're here local, they know someone else or they've been to a thing and they see something else. But if I get on a call from someone from Florida, talking to a guy from Boston, Mass yesterday, who's like, I Google searched, we don't know anyone. It's a destination thing. You have this many reviews, take our money. I'm not having to be like, well, we use the Evolve 50s and it's none of that. It's social proof, take my money, see you next June. With those kind of things for out of state folks. So bestdjinutah.com. One of the things that we really focus on is being more than just the person that plays the music. To lean into a little bit what you said, like one of the taglines, I guess I would say, as I'm visiting with people in the sales call, is I'll say, you know what, it's our goal that all you have to worry about is being with your spouse and your family and friends that have come in for this thing, and let us take the rest of the worry, whether this is ready to go, that people are going to be paying attention to this. And I think a lot of DJs do that, but we really heavily lean into, I know that you're going to need water during photos. I'm going to take care of that for you. Is it my job? No. Does it come with a hit song that I play while I do that? No, it does not. But it makes a difference because then they didn't have to be out of the moment. That picture didn't have to take longer. We were able to dance. And so we really try and be like almost like a day of coordinator that is in charge of the music. And an unpopular opinion, this is just between me and you, I think that people are pretty forgiving if I play a song that sucks, if I've taken care of them the entire day, right? Like I think, oh man, they're really going to like this Bee Gees song that they haven't heard for a while. And I throw it out there and it's like I throw a turd in a punch bowl and everyone goes, what is this? I don't think that they go, oh man, what a jerk that guy was, if I've taken care of them all throughout the day. I think they go, oh yeah, he'll change it. He knows he threw that out. He'll change it. He'll get us something else. But man, he took care of us so well in all of the ways that I think it's just to think of ourselves as one particular thing and only that thing. And I know that there are DJs that do that. I think it misses the point.
I 100% agree. I mispronounced somebody's name at a wedding, but I took care of them and rocked the party at night. And they were like, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Totally forgot, the mishap. So,
Isn't that the worst though? The names. I swear to
oh,
you, like music used to
mm,
make me so anxious and all of those things. Doesn't anymore. It is the
mm,
names of people. You know, I had a Govel over the weekend and it's spelled Govel. And I was like, Govel. And 1,000 times the day of, I'm like, Govel, it's Govel, it's Govel, it's Govel, just freaking out to make sure that I get it right. All
right,
the rest of the stuff, I'm like, made in the shade.
right,
Names, that brief moment where you go, is it Govel or Govel? Son of a, which is it? I've
right.
psyched myself up into this, a disaster.
That's a bad way to close out the podcast, but
Yeah, right.
on
You
a
know,
low
but
note.
I mean, I will say this, and you didn't ask me to, but the
Yeah.
service that you provide for folks, for DJs, and for people that are planning a wedding, geez, talk about just like it's such a stressful time because people feel like it has to be exactly right, and I understand that,
Mm,
and people have never done it before, and I absolutely understand that, and you've got help from people who did it 30 years ago, your parents, and I understand that as well. So I understand kind of all that, and it's a large investment, typically monetarily speaking. So to have someone like yourself that comes in and goes, yeah, it still might be a little bit hard, but let me show you all of this,
yeah.
and just
Thank you.
easily to understand, easy to access with the stuff that you do. It's you know it's an incredible service that I don't think you get enough credit for, and I just think it's amazing. The ease, that's what I appreciate. Just the ease to be able to consume what it is that you do.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, a shameless plug within the next 2 weeks, I'm releasing a book called The Bride's Guide to Wedding Music. It's only 27 pages, but it's everything you need to plan your wedding music. It's the reception guide, the ceremony guide, song suggestions for each, but the most important thing is here's the popular songs and here's the unique songs, because a lot of couples today don't want the same songs played at every wedding for the last 30 years. So
Mm-hmm.
that's coming out in the next couple of weeks.
That's
So
awesome. Where do people get it?
Amazon.com.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. So
To that point, and I'll say this because this is kind of a funnier way to end this. What I absolutely love, and you probably saw this because I think it just reoccurs, the people who are like, we've got a really particular taste in music. You probably haven't heard this before, So we're gonna develop a playlist for you, and then we'll get it over to you. And in your mind, you're like, "Geez, are we doing like a Persian fusion? What is this playlist gonna get?" And then you get it, and it's like Usher's "Yeah" and Flow Rida's "Low" and all these things that you play week in and week out, and you're like,
right.
"Oh, okay, yep, you guys are unique. Your
Yeah.
wild, crazy sense of adventure in music. I think I can accommodate for what you guys are after."
I talked to a bride a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "This is awesome. We have this great cake cutting song, Cake by the Ocean. I love the parody." And you're like, "Yeah, that's been played since it first came out."
Yeah. Yeah. But embracing the change or the choices of people, I think is sort of fun. I know you want to wrap this thing out. I could
No,
talk
you're
for
good.
forever, but like being able to be just like, so to go back to some of the traditions, people still here do a lot of garter
Okay.
tosses.
Yep.
And I mean, just a couple of things I'll say about that is like read where that tradition comes from, and then you have your 21st century eyes looking at that and you go, okay, that's what we're doing. And then just the uncomfortability of like, hey, don't mind me, I'm going to put my head underneath your daughter's dress, stay over there, got this. But when people will tell me, yeah, we're going to do the garter toss, that the response is, what a great choice, man. That's going to be such a fun night, fun portion of the night. Let's make sure that is the moment that you want. So embracing, people don't know any better.
No, and incorporating better ways, like talking to other DJs that don't invite just all the single people, invite all the married and single people, or attach the garter to a football so that way they'll want to catch it. Just incorporating that little personal touches, or your knowledge into the reception, so that way it's not like every other wedding.
Yeah. Yep.
So cool. Thank you very much, Richie. I very much appreciate you being on the podcast. To everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening. Make sure you stay tuned for the next episode coming up in a week.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.